What's up, and welcome back to another episode of Gizmo Slip. Today, we're going to talk about why I sold my house for crypto primarily, but also stocks. I also paid off a bit of credit card debt. I think a lot of you out there might be wondering if you should sell your own home right now, given the current housing market situation. What were the driving factors that made me want to sell my own home? Because my situation is very unique and quite a bit different probably from a lot of you out there. In this video, I also want to touch on why did I choose crypto as my main vehicle of investment. And lastly, I want to talk about all of the crypto videos that I want to make in the future that I'm really excited to make, but I can't really cram it all into this video. Now, I want to make it clear that I am not a financial advisor. I don't give financial advice. If you want very specific financial advice for your specific situation, please talk to a financial advisor. I am far from qualified to be able to just tell people what to do with their money. This video is really just about me sharing my story of what I did and why I did it, and then you can take from it whatever you want. You can just say that guy's an idiot, or maybe that's a smart thing he did and that the other thing was very stupid, because I do a mix of smart and dumb things at the same time. And I'm going to talk about both the smart things I've done and the dumb things I've done financially on this channel going forward. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting thing to talk about. And, I think analyzing your past mistakes is one of the best ways you can learn and not make those mistakes going forward. So, I hope this video is educational and helpful for those of you out there, and maybe it provides an extra viewpoint that's not necessarily, it's more of a layman's viewpoint on the housing market, stocks, crypto, and not so much one of those tried and true financial Wall Street banker type of viewpoints that you typically see on market websites. So I bought my house in the Portland, Oregon area in November 2017 for approximately $450,000. It was entirely me paying for the house, and I put the money down. I did all the monthly payments, and since then the value of the house rose quite a bit. I did get some quotes by realtors estimating the value of my house was $625,000, which was kind of blowing me away, like, wow, the value of the house went up that much. After I did my own market research, I thought the house's value was closer to $700,000 to $750,000, which was quite a bit more than what the realtors were estimating. Now, looking back on it now, I think the realtors were just trying to get the house to sell quickly so that they could get their commission and leave. So after having a couple different realtors give me quotes on what they thought the house was going to be worth, I decided, screw it, I'm going to be my own realtor, and I'm going to list the house for $750,000 and see how things go. So starting in November, I just did a ton of work on the house. I did all these repairs, repaired the floor, did painting, did all these touch-ups around random different places, hired some contractors to work on replacing tons of boards in like the decks, and rebuilding fences, landscaping, trim upgrades, a little bit of siding repair. There was a lot of different things that I did on the house to improve it. It was basically a full-time job prepping the house, and then I went through, did pictures of the house, did video of the house, did a lot of research on how to be a decent real estate agent for yourself, showed the house, and eventually I did get an offer for $730,000. Final price after all negotiations. Ended up finally selling the house for approximately $700,000. So if you do some quick math, you realize that's a $250,000 difference from when I bought the house approximately to when I sold the house. Now there's lots of extra costs involved here, the repairs that I had to do, maintenance, the interest that I paid on the loan. In the end, I ended up with over $250,000 of equity coming back out of the house though, which was very, very satisfying, and it kind of hits the sweet spot for personal tax liability as well, because I was living in the house, so that means that you don't get taxed on the first $250,000 of profit that you make on the house when you sell it. All of those things factored into why I sold the house. So back at the end of 2021, the other major reason why I decided to sell the house is that the Federal Reserve decided to start raising interest rates. So to understand why America's housing market got so expensive, it's important to understand what a more normal-ish housing market might look like. Usually you have moderate interest rates, you have good balance between buyers and sellers, building materials that are available with a decent, good supply chain. The balance between all of these different factors means that homes stay affordable and monthly payments are affordable for most Americans. Now, during the COVID pandemic, we had absolutely crazy low interest rates between 2 and 3%, which is less than typical inflation. This low interest rate meant that there was many more buyers than normal, including a lot of investment buyers. Fear of COVID meant there was less people selling their homes, and then supply chain problems and material shortages meant that a lot less homes got built in the last 2 years. Now, because there was such little supply, housing prices skyrocketed, but the monthly payments stayed more affordable because of the super low interest rate. Now that we are in the post-COVID housing market with the Fed raising interest rates, we have now reached over 6% on average for interest rates here in America, and this is likely to continue increasing through 2023. Now, these high interest rates basically mean that the house that you could afford a couple years ago on really low interest rate payments is now basically completely priced out of what most average Americans can possibly buy. And that's going to mean that when new houses come onto the market, they're just going to sit on the market and cause lots of housing inventory. And as there's more supply and fewer buyers are actually able to buy because of the high interest rates, basically the house prices will stagnate and then fall. And we're already starting to see, I was looking in the Texas home buyers market, I was seeing homes with $40,000 and $50,000 price reductions because no one's buying it. So what this means, in my opinion, is that over the next couple years, home prices are likely to continue falling and going down until either the prices of the homes become more affordable for the average American wages, or the interest rates start coming down and monthly payments become more affordable again. My prediction back then was that the housing market was going to crash or at least see a significant decline, but it's really hard to say how far down it's going to go. In my opinion, it's really going to depend on how high the Federal Reserve ends up pushing those interest rates. If they push mortgage interest rates up to 8-9%, that is going to be absolutely killer on the housing market. Now, I don't know if they're ever going to get that high, but they have been that high in the past, so it's entirely possible that we could see that eventually happen. But given the current trends, I do think the housing market is on a downtrend and will continue that way for possibly 2, maybe 3 years, and then eventually reverse and go back up when the average American's wages can start becoming more compatible with the price of a monthly mortgage payment. And this brings me to kind of one of the main reasons why I really love crypto. Crypto gives the power back to the people. Right now, the Fed has basically absolute control over our economy. They can crash the stock market, the housing market. It's very debilitating as an individual when you have no say over your financial future. And I think this is where crypto can come in and help give the community of individuals a voice back through democracy, which does happen in cryptocurrency projects where you vote on what you want to happen with the cryptocurrency that you're in. Now, another huge factor in my decision to sell the home is that I started doing a lot of research and reading about building a better financial portfolio and how to really get your money to work for you. There's a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the most important principles I got from the book is that, rich people don't really work for their money, they get their money to work for them, and that ideally you want to live below your means with a good job that really pays you what you're worth, and then you take the excess money that you earn and you invest it into things that compound the growth of the money over time. And this is something that I had truly failed to do well during my life so far. And hopefully over the course of many years, keep compounding until you have a sizable nest egg or a sizable retirement fund. Now, this is pretty standard and pretty commonly known, but I was not really raised that way. I was raised with a distrust of the stock market, and I think that was a huge mistake and something that I would advise people to be very cautious of that mindset. It's not that you can't have those safer investments. As a matter of fact, I would argue that any portfolio should be a blend of different types of risk and reward with a mixture of future growth potential. At least that's my mindset towards my investment portfolio. So here I am at the end of 2021 and I'm starting to predict that the housing market is going to crash. I decided I need to sell this house while the market's hot so I can get the best bang for the buck out of it. And then I want to take that capital and put it into high growth, higher risk investment opportunities with the goal of long-term growth. Now, of course, I'm going to do a mixture of stocks in the mix there. Ultimately, I also wanted to have a blend of higher risk crypto. And I think I would be an idiot if I put all my money in stocks and completely ignored crypto. And I think I would also be an idiot if I put all my money in crypto and completely ignore stocks. I think there's a balance between the two that I must strike, and I think it's primarily driven by my risk reward and the overall length of time that I'm looking to invest. And yes, there is a massive volatility in the crypto markets. Simply put, Bitcoin has an absolutely incredible return on investment from a 5-year perspective, much greater than the average gains you'll get in the stock market. The way I see it, with great risk comes great reward. In 2011, basically the trading initially started, but it was pretty all over the place, between $1 and $30. 2013, 2017, $13 at the start to $1,100 at the peak. A huge amount of gains here if you look at the 5-year ROI on Bitcoin on average. Now, of course, there's absolutely no guarantees, and most likely these insane gains that we saw 5-10 years ago are just not going to be had in Bitcoin again. But despite crypto's downturn, if you had bought Bitcoin 5 years ago, you would still be up approximately 5 times what you invested in September 2017. So Bitcoin back then was worth about $4,000. Starting in November 2021 is when I started dabbling in cryptocurrency. I started doing crypto mining, and I also started buying and selling cryptocurrencies on different apps and inside of DeFi protocols. And I actually have really fallen in love with the potential that cryptocurrency has to change the world. And I want to make videos talking about why I think cryptocurrency has that potential to change the world. And I really do believe that potential is very real. I think it's still extremely early when it comes to cryptocurrency. I know that Bitcoin has gone up exponentially, and that at this point we really shouldn't expect the same type of exponential gains, especially within Ethereum and Bitcoin. But I think within some of the alts, each season, each bull market run, there are going to be some alts that are going to be pulling 10, 20, 100 X's. Probably one of the biggest things was the realization that the money inside of crypto is not just random digital BS. Like, the money is very much legitimate. People are pulling it out of bank accounts and then buying the cryptocurrency. And if you ever want to cash out your cryptocurrency, it's very viable to do so. Like, I had never done enough research to truly understand what cryptocurrency was. And so in November 2021, I started just this educational binge, watching hundreds of videos on cryptocurrency, reading dozens, just like probably hundreds of articles on cryptocurrency, different projects, why cryptocurrency is viable, reading books on it. I still think cryptocurrency is high risk. I think there's a lot of potential for scams, and that cryptocurrency does share a lot of its fundamental nature with Ponzi schemes. And I do think there are Ponzi scheme cryptocurrencies out there, but I think the legitimate projects that will be providing legitimate services in the future are not Ponzi schemes, and that they do carry real world value, and they will be applied in the real world in the future. It's just so early in the adoption phase. So why do I think cryptocurrency will be adopted in the real world? And there's just one primary reason, and it's that decentralized cryptocurrency cuts out the greedy middleman. I think probably the best example of this is Ticketmaster, who takes a huge chunk of all of the sales tickets across of concerts, movies, shows, festivals, all the stuff. It takes a huge cut of it, and if a cryptocurrency backed project can instead come up and offer a very minimal fee or almost no fees, and those fees that are taken actually are given as rewards back to the people that back the crypto project, basically that whole Ticketmaster company becomes obsolete. I think there are a lot of different ecosystems that crypto fits into. I think you have GameFi, which within the video game markets, where game asset ownership as well as games themselves can be owned on the blockchain and sold to other people, whereas in things like in existing game systems like Steam, you don't have ownership of the game or the assets inside the game except within a handful of certain games, and even then you can't get real money back out of them. I think lots of different industries can have this greedy middleman pulled out, and then the whole thing gets replaced with a crypto project instead that's much more beneficial and is community driven and oriented. So instead of a corporate company running it for a corporate company's profits and end game, you basically have a community driven project that benefits the community as a primary driving focus. But I think we're still extremely early, and decentralized crypto projects take a lot longer to get off the ground than centralized capitalistic companies. So it's going to be a long road before we see that level of integration in society. But when it does come, I think those products will be seamless and run basically just like the existing platforms. And to the end user, they won't even realize that it's a crypto-backed project until later on down the line. They'll just use it because it's cheaper, more efficient, or has better features. I think there still has to be a ton of innovation within blockchain technology for us to be able to truly embrace it, and there has to be proper regulations put in place as well for cryptocurrency to truly flourish. So the way I see cryptocurrency right now is that we're basically in the Wild West. We're figuring things out. We're on the frontier. Some of the initial cities have been built, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and some of these other projects are extremely promising. And the way I see it, we're still so early that if I can get a decent chunk of a cryptocurrency that will be applied in the real world and provide real world services to individuals over the long haul, like say 10, 20 years from now, that are still around 10 to 20 years from now and they're being utilized, that is when you're talking about massive, massive potential growth. So that's kind of the way I see it. So I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I'm not an Ethereum maxi. I'm a real world application maxi, I guess. Like whatever cryptocurrency I think could be applied and utilized by the general population will be the ones that ultimately succeed in the long haul. And that I think that there are real world applications to it that are hard to predict and that a lot of people just can't quite understand or see yet. But in the coming years, as people are educated more and more about cryptocurrency, it's going to take off. It's going to keep taking off. And if I don't get in now, I feel like I'd be making a huge mistake. So all of these things were swirling in my brain like, okay, I got to sell the house before the housing market crashed. I want to get into cryptocurrency. And I, of course, want to pay off any credit card debt that I had and also provide more funds to be put into the stock market. So I definitely had multiple objectives when I went to sell my house. And overall, I think my plan is still going to work out, even if the markets have continued to go down since I put most of my money in. So I sold my house in April 2022. That was when everything was finalized and I finally got paid for the sale of my home. And I didn't immediately go throw all of that money into the crypto and stock market. No, I incrementally put that money into the stock market through my 401k. And then over the next couple of months, I dollar cost averaged into the crypto markets. And ultimately, I kind of wish I had spread my money out over a longer period of time, which would have lowered my average buy price. Because my money was basically almost fully in there by the time that Bitcoin was dropping below 30K. So at this point, I am not up in my financial investment, but I wasn't really planning to be. If you're trying to buy the dip, it's basically almost impossible to perfectly time the bottom of the dip. You're usually going to get a much better return on your investment if you buy while the markets are dipping. The trick is, when does the market bounce back up and go back up permanently? It's impossible to know for sure. So typically what people do is they buy at multiple increments as the market is descending. I just wish that I had bought a little bit less earlier on and a little bit more later on, say in mid-June. Now, I do think crypto and the stock markets could go down much more than they are now, but I think it's actually unlikely at this point. That's my personal take on it, not financial advice again, but I think we're getting pretty close to the bottom here in the stock markets and in crypto, and I think we're going to see a rebound here coming up with a positive end of the year / into mid 2023. We're going to have some real upward movement, and I'm really looking forward to that upward movement so I get back into the green, but we'll see. It's really hard to predict what's going to happen because the world is absolutely crazy. If World War III starts out of nowhere, who knows what's going to happen. If the next pandemic hits suddenly out of nowhere, who knows what's going to happen. It's impossible to predict what's going to happen ultimately. And I still want to talk to you about which crypto projects I think are going to be the best long-term viable projects. I also want to talk about the crypto projects that I'm just really passionate about. Like, I'm not passionate about all of them, but there's a handful of projects that I think are just so cool and have the potential to completely revolutionize different markets. And I'm also going to be perfectly transparent with you. I'm not here to do any pump or dump schemes at all. I put my money into these cryptos and stocks. Anything that I talk about, I'll disclose fully what I have in there and how's it going, am I up, am I down, and what I'm planning to do with my own money, because ultimately that's how I want to run these kinds of videos. I want to tell you what I'm doing. I'm not here to tell you what you should be doing. I'm just telling my story so other people can learn from my mistakes and my successes, and that way maybe we can all be a little bit wiser off. So if you don't want to miss out on any of these financial stories about what I've done in the past and what I might be doing in the future and which projects I'm really passionate about, both in the crypto and in the stock market, please subscribe and come back for more of my videos. I think that's about everything that I want to say in this video, because otherwise it's just going to get super long. I could talk about cryptocurrency for just like hours and hours. So I think that's probably where I should leave it, wrap it up there. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please slap that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Brandon out.